Is enlightenment and the complete ending of suffering actually possible? Not as a lofty ideal, but as something that can be realized by Westerners living ordinary modern lives. And here we're not just talking about insight into suffering or learning to accept it, but the full and permanent cessation of all trauma, emotional friction, and habitual reactive patterns. In our previous episodes, we explored this question with Amrita Baba, founder and head teacher of the Amrita Mandala path, who completed the path last November, and with Kripa, who completed the path shortly afterwards. Today we turn to Sangita, another practitioner in our Sangha who has already completed the path of the two subtle bodies, with the final cessation of the astral body, the field of meridians, at the end of the winter retreat in December-January. This is the final purification of the emotional energetic body. So this means the ending of the mechanism for the kleshas, the 5 poisons, the mental emotional afflictions of ignorance, attachment, aversion, pride, and jealousy. And with them, the ending of trauma, emotional friction, and habitual reactive patterns as the drivers of suffering. What may still arise in the body no longer binds in the same way and no longer creates psychological suffering. This marks a continuation of something important in our Sangha, that people living ordinary Western lives, raising families, working, and fully engaged in the world, are able to move through all the stages of awakening and the purification of both subtle bodies, and arrive at the end of suffering in its essential sense. Sangita is not a monastic. She is not living in retreat. She has lived a full and demanding life, is a married mother with a career, and has spoken very openly about the patterns that shaped her experience before this shift. At this point in our Sangha, 23 practitioners have realized emptiness of mind, completion of the stage of lesser one taste, and 7 have now also purified the subtle body of the meridians. The essential point is this: the stages of awakening and enlightenment are not vague or purely interpretive. They can be known with certainty and mapped clearly. What ultimately matters here isn't belief in esoteric ideas, but whether a path produces stable, reproducible freedom from suffering. And here we openly discuss lived experience because clarity about the path benefits everyone. The episode continues the Enlightened Westerner Series, following on from the Bodhicitta interviews published 3 or 4 years ago, where we explore, in a grounded and down-to-earth way, what full enlightenment looks like when realized by ordinary modern men and women. I'll put Sangita's previous interview in the notes below. So we place this discussion firmly in the tradition of pragmatic Dharma, openly discussing lived experience, results, and completion just as many masters of the past did, rather than keeping enlightenment vague, romanticized, or abstract. If this kind of open exploration of the path is valuable to you, please like, subscribe, and share. It genuinely helps these conversations reach those who are sincerely looking for freedom. And today, rather than speaking in theory, I want to explore Sangita's lived experience in a grounded and honest way of what it means for the mechanism of suffering to come to an end. So, Sangita, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I've been following Sangita's journey with great interest ever since I joined the Sangha in early 2020, as she's kept a detailed journal of her journey in the Sangha Facebook page. So I've got to witness many of her highs and lows. And we've also been on quite a few retreats together by now. So thank you for joining me today. And I want to begin by understanding what was this shift, what it means, and how you experienced it. And then we'll go on to how this appears in your life. So can you begin by describing the shift, the final cessation, how and when it happened?
Yeah, that's a big question. So it happened on the recent winter retreat, on the second to last day of the retreat. And retreats are always like pressure cookers with a lot of practice and a lot of charge, highlighting whatever we have left in our subtle bodies and really bringing those uncomfortable feelings to surface. So it was a very, very intense retreat. And then on Saturday morning when I woke up, I really didn't, it had happened during the night, but it took me until Saturday evening to realize that something actually was different and that the practice wasn't hitting the same way. And then when I kind of started to look around internally and about my reactions to everything around me, I noticed that the internal feeling had changed quite significantly, because there was no need to be anything else than what I was actually genuinely feeling at that moment. So like this, some level of uncertainty and selfishness patterns had dropped away. A lot there, I could feel that there used to be these kind of erratic energies, kind of like vibrating inside my body, and that I would have these weird pains and aches in different locations, and a rib that kept on popping out. And suddenly there was just like this really beautiful presence, not lack of emotions or not lack of thoughts, but there was no need to control them or filter them or try to twist them anymore in any kind of ways, but just like acceptance of everything I was experiencing without the need to change anything. Yeah. And it felt like arriving home, like this long time longing that I've had, even long before I started practicing. I was also always, as a kid and as a teenager, fascinated by the idea of finding what is at the absolute core of things. When you take away everything that's unnecessary, where do you arrive? And I couldn't really describe it better than that there was this kind of want to know what the truth is, and what is genuine and what isn't. I didn't know about Dharma. I even stumbled into the guidance to awakening by accident without knowing what awakening is. But I have to say, I now understand what I was looking for with that quest for the kind of nature of truth. And that I can say that I've basically shed everything which isn't genuine and all the weight and distortions from my psyche and from my mind. Wow. And kind of arrived at that genuineness that's undistorted.
Yeah, it's interesting you say about the guidance to awakening. We tend to talk about things that there's something that feels essentially off in our experience. That's kind of how we describe it back in those days. But then it sounds like you're describing the sort of shell of whatever this offness is, and what comes in place of that is this feeling of being home in yourself.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting, because when I started and took up practice and started practicing the two-part formula, I wasn't looking for Dharma. I wasn't searching. I'd been listening to the odd guided meditation on YouTube and some just like random stuff, nothing system, like not a lineage or a system, but just like this random bits and pieces. And then I remember there was a yoga festival, and Baba had a lecture about awakening, and unfortunately I couldn't attend that, but I emailed him after a while, some weeks after, and those 2 weeks I was kind of going back and forth, because I could feel there would be a big change. But I was trying to decide if it's a good change or a bad change. And then I was like, but I've lived my life kind of diving head in first, or head first in. And so I'll deal with the consequences afterwards. And then, it only took me we started the dialogue on Wednesday, and by Friday lunchtime, when I was typing my email to Baba on my lunch hour, I had the awakening as I was kind of writing my report about my
Wow.
findings.
Yeah.
And then I started practice. It took a while for me to kind of really get into the causal body practice that you kind of traditionally continue with, or back then we only had the kind of causal body to continue with after awakening. And I didn't really pick up practice I was more so looking for a way out for myself to feel better. There definitely was no bodhicitta involved, just like this, wanting to escape my own life and my own kind of existential dread that I was experiencing. But I remember the first time we did guru yoga, and we did it with Machi Glabdran,
Mm.
wonderful female master, and it felt like coming home. So we had this short city retreat in Helsinki, and it was just like an absolutely beautiful experience. And I knew that I'd found basically my home and my teacher and the tradition that I want to pursue. So there was
So,
already this kind of first arrival home in the lineage, like this familiarity that I
mhm.
kind of recognized that, yeah.
So you already had some sense of this homeness. Well, in a way, none of us really know what we're letting ourselves in for when we begin this thing.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you found this sense of homeness in the practice. But then obviously it takes quite a while before we reach this point. How long have you been practicing for now?
I had my guidance to awakening in February 2015, so just short over 11 years.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, it's March, yes, not yet April, but March
Yeah. Yeah.
2026. Yeah.
So perhaps just for the viewers, the causal body practice is the path of wisdom and clarity. These are the path of awakenings, successive awakenings that we go through, and then there's the purification of phase where we're integrating these awakened experiences into our being until the point where they become permanent and complete. Uh, then the way we've done it in this Sangha so far is that then we go on to the energetic body, the emotional energetic body, which we call the astral body, which is we divide them into two subtle bodies, the causal body and the astral body. The astral body is made of the meridians, and this is where we have our afflictive emotions, the aversion and clinging, um, the pride and the jealousy, these types of things, and where we contain knots of trauma that we work through. So it can be quite an intense process. Um, can you perhaps describe the difference in how what is the difference in the cessation of the causal body, this realization of emptiness, and now this cessation?
Yeah. So with the emptiness insight, we work through the levels of self-identification with our thoughts and emotions and everything we encounter in life. Like this belief that there's this self, this small me, separate entity, and not awareness that is expressed in kind of this shape and form to whom things happen. And so you get like gradual insights, like you said, in the causal body when you're going and progressing through the shifts. They'll have the several consecutive Bhumi awakenings or openings, also called awakenings, and then perfections, where they're even more integrated, and permanent shifts in your mind until you arrive in the full realization of emptiness, that there really is not this separate self entity. And it feels like kind of a gradual expansion in your awareness, and a lot less reactiveness. And it feels, for me, it was a very physical process. So you could, like, because we're working with our mind, and it's situated inside the body and outside in our aura, the causal body. So it felt we're working in a different terrain than with the astral body when we're just working inside our body. So there's also this kind of a spatial expansion that happens, where you just have this kind of clarity and radiance inside you and outside you. And now I'm talking about the causal body. And then on the astral body side, it's this really all-pervasive feeling of goodness, and feeling good. So there's no, and you feel wholesome internally. It not just because you have the clarity, but then you have this positivity and this kind of this love and this richness that comes. So the clarity it's absolutely beautiful, but it still lacks this aliveness to it, even if it's clear and cognizant, and it has a freshness to it, but it still lacks a bit of color. So it's almost like going from a black and white TV to a color TV. And then
A
you
very
add in,
clear black and white TV, but
yes, exactly.
yeah.
But yeah, and yeah, I thought I was like, there's still room for quite a lot of distortions, even with having perfected your 10 bhumis and arrived at full emptiness insight, like the avidya klesha completely turned into wisdom. But it feels like that's not even like half of the cake, but you have then still a lot of selfishness and anger and trauma patterns to deal with that I was very, very oblivious about. And that's been the terrain that I've been working on now since October 2021. And yeah, it's but the end result is feels like a richness, when the other one is the causal body is more clarity. Then this is like the richness and joyfulness of life, the kind of extra flavor. Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Something you said just there. Oh yeah, about selfishness, because it's interesting to describe this to people, because the causal body is to do with the self-identity, selfing mechanism. So then it seems perhaps a bit strange to explain to people that now you're working with the selfishness. It's kind of this expression of the selfing mechanism which we're now working through, and this is a lot thicker, a lot more viscous, a lot more physical, a lot more really felt in the expression as a human being. So it is quite a undertaking to work through this path.
Oh yes, and it's especially as some of it can be kind of cultural conditioning, and gender-based conditioning.
Mhm.
A lot of distortions that you've inherited that you don't necessarily even know. And yeah, so it's not just traumas that we store in the meridians, in the knots, but also a lot of anger and suppressed emotions and the traces of those suppressed emotions and the belief patterns why we have suppressed emotions. And for instance, I realized I had suppressed so much anger that if you have like the full register, this, I hope my both hands are looks like they're, yeah, you can see that like the whole register of emotions is enlightened. So all emotions are in fact the correct emotions to whatever circumstance, but how they're, what I was doing is I was, so anger and frustration and everything kind of like, let's say what we'd call the negative emotions. I want to call them just emotions, but people might maybe better understand like the kind of lower end of the register. I completely bypassed them and kind of stuffed them down. So I was only operating on what felt like acceptable and what I was taught is kind of acceptable behavior. And then the other register part of the register was kind of frowned upon, that it's uncivilized or not accepted and you shouldn't behave like that. Or and then so I was just stuffing things down and then releasing a lot of the pent up anger and frustration. And yeah, so that was a big revelation for me, that I can actually have all kinds of emotions and that they actually are the correct response, frustration or anger to a circumstance, that it's an accurate response. It took me, yeah, it actually took me by surprise, which is a bit strange, but it did. Yeah.
So now you become uncivilized.
I'm becoming uncivilized, yes.
Well,
Yeah, that's one of those things that kind of like, that's also cultural conditioning, like
yeah.
depending on it, what in what culture you are, what's considered civilized. That's also just like conditioning. So
Mm.
yeah.
Well, I've heard someone say before that our understanding of what anger is actually repressed anger. The
Mm.
anger that tends to come out that we try to avoid is this anger that we push down like a cork
Yeah.
in a bottle.
Yeah.
And when we do let this anger flow, it overflows, comes out irrationally
Yeah.
and narrow focused.
Yeah.
It's a constricted anger, but perhaps you can sort of explain like
Yeah.
do we not, how do we not suffer these emotions anymore? And um, is this anger, so the emotion anger can still arise, but it's an open expression of love now,
Yeah.
rather than anything narrow and constricted.
And then I think the trick is that you have to address all the pent up anger first. So because that the response of anger, I don't know, well, just any circumstance. I can't think of an example, but any circumstance where you have anger triggers the kind of like pent up, bottled up. If you have a bottle and then you open up the cap, and then all the other anger starts to
Oh
flow
yeah.
from there too. So that's the kind of pent up stuff is also what you're dealing with or processing with practice. And kind of reverse, we have a practice called reverse suppression where we are actually inviting all the pent up stuff up to the surface so that we can release it. So it's only after you've actually addressed those kind of subconscious patterns that you have, like that emotional reactiveness, that you can have a pure anger. Like you have wrathful deities, and like really fierce, like cutting heads and spears and skulls and blood and skull cups and such. It's just as much as their representations of kind of enlightened emotions. We have the same, but we've just dealt with all the triggers that distort the emotion that comes out.
Hmm.
So yeah.
And so would you say that you now don't suffer your emotions? Or how would you describe that?
Um, I don't have existential suffering. I'm not confused about who I am. I'm not confused about how circumstances affect me. Um, or let's say that that's a poor description. I'm not confused about kind of my who I am as a person does not get changed by my external circumstances, even if I don't know, I might get unemployed, or I might something bad might happen in my life, but as I've arrived at who I am at my core, those circumstances, of course, if I'd lose a loved one, I'd be really sad. But at the core, it wouldn't change who I am. And I think that when we don't know who we are, we're reactive to our circumstances. And because of trauma patterns, because of all kinds of conditioning, anger, frustration, and such. And when we deal with all that shit that we have in our system, and it's not an easy process because you like all the stuff that you just kind of push down is the stuff that you absolutely have not wanted to address. Like you've like done everything else in your life except addressing those things because that's why they are there, because you've buried them and you've done your absolutely best to avoid getting them come to the surface because it's just really uncomfortable. So yeah, what was your question actually? I might be off on a different
Oh,
tangent.
I was just asking you about um, do you suffer your emotions
Yeah,
anymore?
yeah. Do I suffer? So yeah, I mean, I was suffering when I was dealing or going through all those stored, like the reactiveness that comes from like I don't know, say somebody cuts me in the store, in the line to the register, and I'd be in a super hurry, and then I would get frustrated, and then uh, and then the 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 emotion would arise way faster than I would be able to catch it.
Yeah,
So the reactiveness is there, and then you can only catch it once it has happened. That's like that's the reactiveness of unresolved stuff in your astral body. And nowadays, it doesn't come from these blind spots anymore, the reactions, but they're coming from this pure place, from actually me being me. And yeah, like I've had bad migraines that it took me a long time to figure out what was going on and why. And and it was a reaction to like this perceived lack of control. And but I was only on the receiving end of it, so I didn't have, even if I kind of knew where, there was still it was always like a reaction to external circumstances. And then I started to kind of process the causes instead of yeah, I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have caught it before it happened. So it's like this very, yeah, you're working with your kind of worst blind spots. And that's painful, but afterwards it's not painful anymore. Yeah.
so, can you describe the gap between just in the period before and perhaps this difficult time you were going through on the retreat is a good example to refer to, and then does it feel like a kind of leap or even a sense of relief when you have this shift?
Yeah. On the retreat, So we have several practice sessions with long breaks in between to rest and recover, because we're processing so much. And I was just going through so much internal pain on every break when I could start to release whatever was stirred up on the sessions. And like the process in the causal body seems to be that the further away from your root traumas and root distortions you are, like in the beginning, the less or the dark night symptoms aren't as intense. But when you close in on the really, really uncomfortable stuff, they just get more intense and more intense and more intense. And the last really intense dark night that I had on the retreat, every cell in my body was screaming to stop practice, go outside, eat, watch Netflix, like something, whatever that would take my mind off of it. And I knew that I mean, even if I was going through a very hard time, I knew that it's expected. And I often wonder that how much worse can this get. And but it seemed like that was the lowest of the lows just then on a couple of days before the final cessation started. But it's I made the comparison of being burned on a stake while you're being choked and drowned at the same time, like everything just like kind of compressing in on
Wow.
you, and every just like cell of your being and fiber of your being wants to run away, but you can't. I mean, of course you can, but that's like running away from what you're feeling is samsara.
Mm.
And somehow I knew that. I mean, I have a good shot at practice in this life, even if I'm not a full like a monastic, or I don't do like year-long retreats or anything, but that the practices work. And I've seen the effects in my own life, and my own internal kind of happiness and contentment. So I was fully decided to sit through it and just bear the excruciating pain. And I didn't die, even if I thought I was. Well, figuratively speaking. But yeah,
So
it's
did it feel very physically crushing? Lots of pressure
yeah,
in the system, a very
and yeah,
visceral
a very
experience.
visceral and a very um, yeah, like this absolute excruciating pain. I wouldn't say that it's like a panic attack, but like that wanting. If I've had one panic attack in my life, and it felt like I wanted to kind of climb out from my own skin, kind of somehow shed my body and kind of somehow get away. And that there was like the same feeling of just kind of wanting to get away.
Mm.
But as practitioners, we know that there's no other way than through, and you have to go through, otherwise you're avoiding it, and then it's going to show up at a later point in time. So I've done my fair share avoiding too, but this time I didn't. Yeah.
So was it quite a physical relief? Also, have you described the actual did you describe the actual moment that you experienced the cessation? Because you said you've noticed it a few hours
Yeah.
after, but how did
Yeah.
you know you'd had it a few hours
Um,
before?
so on, I knew it hadn't happened on Friday evening. And on Saturday morning, I was driving my daughter, and we were picking up one of her friends and driving her to one of, or them to one of their hobbies. And I noticed in the morning when I was driving through this one neighborhood that somehow it felt like I had been inside. There's like, you know, like different neighborhoods have different vibes. So this particular neighborhood, I'd kind of somehow seen up to it. It's a really nice and well-off neighborhood. And then I noticed, like, when we were driving through there, that I was like looking at the energy from the outside. So something that I had been kind of unconsciously maybe looking up to or striving towards wasn't anymore like anything to strive towards and having, but I was looking at it from the outside and seeing all kinds of like selfishness patterns and like this kind of like negative pride and kind of energy. And then I realized that interesting, like I've probably shed something there related to that. And then later on in the evening I realized that the practice wasn't hitting the same way, and that those irrational energies, that kind of like buzzing and kind of like the thing that kind of like you don't want to sit still, but you want to move or kind of shake your leg or something, that was all gone. That I was completely peaceful inside, like my like whole physical being was just like calm, which it never is. And then I realized that that I have been feeling like this since the morning. So the shift happened sometime in my sleep. And the last thing that I'd shed was this kind of selfishness that was there. And then I looked back that the second to last thing that happened was that got integrated was that I could see my psyche being divided into three parts. There was the kind of Buddha nature me, the natural, the spontaneously good, then there was this tiny, tiny piece of my psyche that was very hurt and felt like it had already failed before starting. And then there was this third part which kind of grew around this hurt part, like vines spreading in different directions, all just meant kind of constructions, all meant to protect this tiny bit of my psyche. And then I was like on Thursday when I discovered this, I was sitting there and looking at my mind, like actually kind of like, well, I mean, we're working internally with our subtle energies, and I could see these three distinct separate pieces, and I was like, that's me, and that's me trying to protect the hurt, kind of, but in a kind of messed up way, and it's this kind of a messed up construction of elaborate distortions and whatnots, kind of a, and yeah. Then I was like, this is interesting. Like, how am I supposed to get these kind of because I think you had the really nice comment on the retreat that you are trying to address your own pain without understanding. You had this really nice wording that you used, that like, I am trying to solve something that I am a problem of, or I have a problem and I am trying to solve it, instead of kind of letting it release into awareness. And I kind of understood that I'm somehow addressing this in the wrong way, but I couldn't really fix it. But later then on the evening session, I had a 3-body cessation. Like, all 3 bodies went into cessation for 5 minutes or so, while we were chanting Om Abahus, long, really beautiful mantras, or a mantra. And after that, after a while, I had the 3-body cessation. And when I came out from the cessation and I was looking at my mind and my psyche, and I saw that, there is only one. So the hurt part was integrated into, so it was, what do you call it? Dissociated, so slightly like not inside the normal psyche, but like slightly outside of it. And so that released just before. And I've had the idea that it's been also like a protective mechanism to kind of build, in a way, certainty around yourself through being well off and being in control, and seeing people who look like they have their shit together, and they kind of have this, like, a certain hardness to them, but that means that they're not the ones being wounded, but they're maybe they can be the ones calling the shots instead. I mean, I'm not talking, this isn't a rational thing in that sense, but it's like I could see that those characteristics would allow me to prevent the small wounded part of my psyche to be exposed. If I have those attributes, that selfishness and that kind of a bit of an arrogance, that would protect me from having that part exposed. So, yeah, it's...
So just to describe to the viewers, a three-body cessation is the two subtle bodies and the physical body going into cessation. Cessation meaning the kind of release of all mental, emotional, habitual tendencies. The release of the karmic residue lifts temporarily, and you got to experience that for a 5 minute period or so. Perhaps can you manage to explain how that felt?
Oh, yeah, it's like all sense of separation drops away. I'm not saying we become all one, but we become, we have like you become an expression of your, like, everything you do. Like, for instance, I was chanting the mantra Om Abahu, and I was the mantra. So I wasn't singing the mantra, I was the mantra, and I was the energy of the mantra, and I was at the same time the wish that I had that everybody would be liberated. It wasn't a wish that I made, I was that wish. So the kind of doer becomes the doing. So the kind of duality between, you have, like, I am singing would be the experience of just being the song and the energy of the song. Yeah, it's still a new territory for me,
Yeah.
but it feels
Nice way to
like,
describe it.
yeah, it feels like you become limitless in a way, because you're just this expression of the natural state in your individual shape and form and expression.
Mm.
Yeah.
So then this somehow led to you recognizing that integration happen of this
Yes.
small bit that you were trying to protect with in any which way you could through
Yep.
pride or whatever. But then you noticed that integrated.
Yeah, I didn't notice the actual integration, but I somehow, like, afterwards realized that I'd been barking at the wrong tree, so to say, in
Okay.
kind of like trying to somehow kind of like, go in there and get integrated, and
Oh yeah.
asking it to get integrated, and
So
praying for it
there
to
was a
be.
you trying to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, cessations of any of the subtle bodies work like wonderful kind of both resets, but also like pointers on where we're going, what the direction is, and also that the practice is working. On the kind of emptiness side, the wisdom and clarity, the causal body practices, it's pretty easy because you have like short cessations and a little bit of clarity, and then longer cessations with a bit more clarity, and then you kind of build on that So it's kind of like an inverted pyramid, I guess, like, and then it kind of just like, yeah, you arrive. And but with the astral body, it's, yeah, it's sometimes you have a cessation, a long one, and then you might for a long period of time not have any cessations, and then you're wondering, you like, you can't really measure it in the same way, because it's just like all spread out all, everywhere around inside your physical body in the meridians. So you don't have as clear of a path map as with the boomies, but there's still like this. I could see now that the dark, like increased intensity in dark nights, the discomfort of exposing kind of those wounded parts and suppressed emotions, and that the intensity of them indicates that you're getting closer to the really uncomfortable stuff at the root.
Okay, I thought I was going backwards.
Oh yeah, that's how it feels.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And like it's like you're pedaling in a swamp, and the more you try to get out, the deeper you sink. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, and it's Baba made this joke about dark night, less dark night, dark night, less dark night, which is quite accurate. And so it requires quite a bit of willpower and willingness and readiness to kind of meet your own limitations and distortions and everything that you don't want to address in your life,
Mm.
instead of hiding from it. Yeah, allowing it and actually inviting it up to be addressed. Yeah.
So this point that you make about less dark night, less dark night,
Yeah.
etc. Uh, it's generally this pull of this selfing never lets go, apart from the odd cessation which seems to happen much more randomly on the astral body side. But there's no sort of forgiveness or letting go until this point where you do have the final cessation. And so I want to come to asking you, does it how do you know it's a final cessation? And the actual experience sounded quite subtle. It's that you sort of had to look around and notice this experience happened, but from the difference of this dark night, less dark night,
Mm.
this continuous "Ugh,"
Yeah.
as a noise to describe it with, to going from to being released from that, it that sounds quite a dramatic difference.
Oh, most definitely. Um, but I think it's also on retreats, you have this kind of like extra clarity from the practice and the group charge and the retreat charge and just Baba's transmission in general. So I think I had a hard time in that sense knowing kind of what's my own level of clarity on the retreat, and what's the kind of added amped up clarity from the retreat. So I think that's why I couldn't pinpoint the exact time, but only realized that there had been a very kind of a permanent calmness and stability in my inside in my psyche and in my mind. But yes, then compared to the times like the dark night and the less dark night periods, oh, it's like night and day. But the interesting thing is that once you shed a trauma, for instance, you've resolved it, so you have the memory of it, but you don't have the energetic weight. So it's almost like you're looking back at you're looking back at your own life, but then there's like no emotional weight to it. It's almost like it's someone else's life, even if it's yours, because you've addressed all the emotional baggage that you've carried and the distortions that you've had. But it is like intense existential pain and anger and selfishness, like I said. And like my migraines, I realized that the root of my migraines, at the core level, was the fear of, in that moment, get the tiny part, the wounded part, exposed.
Wow.
So the conflict between trying to hide that and shielding it, and then having the kind of energy poke, something poke at it. A migraine, in my experience, is a reaction to something. So I've lately very seldomly taken any painkillers for it, but I've instead been kind of having had like a dialogue with the pain to see what triggers it, and I go through like all kinds of different options, and then I say like, okay, there's something that makes it worse, and then I go and look into that direction and shed light on those feelings, and then kind of bit by bit you just kind of what do you call it when you have a knife and you kind of cut away pieces until there's nothing left, and then kind of that bout of migraine gets at least for that time then solved. And I mean, I've had migraines since I was 2 years old.
Wow.
So they've been a constant companion, and it's been I mean, it's been one hell of a process, but I have to say I can count myself very lucky that it hasn't been that much longer. That 11 years from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It feels like a long time whilst you're in it, but
It feels, but I think it's also because the Amrita Mandala practices are so effective. It means the kind of the let's say so that the lows are quite intense until you find your way back, and then you're already addressing the next emotional thing. But the thing is, you're not going in a circle, like it's not just repeating itself, whatever the things are that you're addressing, but it's more like a spiral that moves up and up and up and up and up until it's resolved. So that's a big difference, that you never arrive in the same place where you left practice wise, but there's always like new aspects that you're dealing with until the onion is peeled. And then you get the next onion, and then you cry, and then you continue peeling.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely the crying involved.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I spoke with my husband also about the crying, and I was like, how much just like sadness, because sadness has been one of my go-to feelings. How much sadness can there be? Like, like I've really, I've cried so much. I've cried so much, and I mean, it's good because then it comes up. But yeah, there's just been so much sadness that I've stored in my body, just kind of like pushed it down, and then yeah. Yeah, but that's those things have been addressed, and the thing that's been kind of comforting to think about is that it's not an infinite amount of shit that we have in our subtle bodies, but it does have a beginning and it does have an end.
Mm-hmm.
Some have more, some have less, but it does have a beginning and it does have an end. So it's not an open-ended process.
So you made a very simple expression there. It has been ended. Like talking of the sadness. So you feel this is a permanent shedding in a way of this
Oh yeah,
cessation.
yeah.
And how are you aware of that it's a permanent thing?
There's no you gain some kind of insights about yourself when you're releasing things, or like you realize there's a relief or a release of some sort, that you're kind of shedding weight and releasing something that's been stored, gets unstuck, and all that's gone. But having said it's on the kind of existential side. There's no maturing, there's no more deepening of emptiness realization. There's not a process of becoming more me.
Mm.
But at the same time, the physical body still carries those small imprints of whatever I've experienced. And I had my migraine get triggered last week, Friday. But the interesting thing was, it was purely energy. There was no fear, there was no contraction in the astral body. There was no emotional component to it. It was just very much compressed and stuck energy in those kind of areas where I usually have been feeling the migraine.
Mm.
So that's it just feels like whatever, if there's an echo of sorts that arises from the physical body, it just feels like very compact energy that wants to be released, but it doesn't come with any insights.
I see.
Yeah. When kind of releases in the astral and the causal bodies all have had some kind of increase in knowingness or some kind of understanding of our internal condition and who we are and our psyche. Yeah, but that doesn't happen on the physical body side.
So then how did you experience this shift in your life? Perhaps you can begin with the first couple of weeks of realizing this. It must be quite interesting.
Oh, I have to say, I felt like I was finally born as myself.
Okay, yeah.
Like, yeah, like I actually like I started to live life as me for the first time. Not as any conditionings, not as a mom or through a work identity or any kind of like factors that you might identify with. Of course, I still continue to be a mom and I love my kids. That hasn't changed. But the identification and the kind of roles don't have that weight and impact anymore that they used to have. So I was somehow able to like meet my kids for the first time as me, like as myself, without fears and doubts and misgivings about my capability as a mom. I mean, yeah, I could like for the first time be me with them, which is a bit sad, but at the same time such a privilege to kind of get that experience. And then I remember like one of the first things I was thinking that, oh my God, I just wish that everybody would have this experience. That just like yeah, like if you've had a long day at work and then you come home and then you're just like kind of like and you sit down and you maybe eat something and then you're just like relaxing in this kind of really effortless way. What if you could have that day in and day out in all situations with yourself? Like why wouldn't like yeah like it that's the big relief that I felt, like finally that like this performance that you put on somehow, even like small things, like completely irrelevant things, but there's been this kind of like filter between you and your surroundings that you've never like really truly been present. Like you've never really been there because you've had to save face or you've held a bit of a distance and you didn't want to go out in the stairway because you didn't want to say hi to your neighbor because I don't know, they said something, you left the door open and they heard you arguing with your spouse or something and now you're ashamed or something, I don't know. Like whatever that could create this, like even like the smallest distance between, everything is gone. Like everything just became so intimate And yeah, if I use the word innocent, I don't mean that you'd be normally guilty, but in this very kind of like childlike innocence and purity, because there's no distortions in the kind of like the engagement with your surroundings anymore. And that lasted about a week and a half. And yeah, I hardly needed to sleep. Like I was okay with 4 or 5 hours of sleep, sometimes maybe 6. And yeah, so the honeymoon lasted, yeah, a week and a half. And then my kind of burnout and depression, traces that I have had stored in the physical tissues started to kind of pop up. And then again, the kind of yeah, the what felt the honey, or like the honeymoon ended, like slowly just kind of tiredness creeping in. And then it felt like, do I need to drag myself out of bed, when a couple of days earlier I was, I don't know, yeah, sorting through my wardrobe and sorting through stuff and taking stuff to the basement and giving away lots to charity. And yeah, that definitely wasn't kind of how I was feeling then a few weeks in afterwards, when the heaviness then kicked in. But I think I've gotten at least some or most of that resolved. And yeah, it's been it's really interesting, because it seems like as we're progressing on the emptiness side, we're not really that aware of our traumas in the meridians. And they only start to become really apparent and obvious once we finish the emptiness side. And that's kind of when they become really loud, because there's no filters anymore, kind of preventing them from coming to and being exposed. But the same kind of thing seems to be happening also, that once we finish the astral body, we're not really aware, or we weren't aware of how much was going on in the physical body. So it's almost like this limiter, that we can't be flooded with everything in one go, and like work with all three bodies like 100%. But that there's this filtering system that only allows kind of like a certain amount of stuff to come through, and you need to kind of move in a
enough
system.
comes through as it is.
Yeah.
So would you say this is a lot of the as we go through life with this selfing lens, and acting in particular ways, and trying to repress our emotions, etc., a lot of this tiredness, this physical tiredness that you now experience, was sort of this repressed energies that's now coming through.
Yeah. And just I didn't allow myself to stop working. Like I this is also kind of like was kind of one of the trauma patterns that I had, that I felt the need both to be in control, because if I can control what's happening around me, I can also control the wounded part not being hurt. And also this fear of rejection that I've had from a very, very early age, and this idea that I need to sort things out and figure things out, and I need to do it, and I need to be the one that can be relied on. This kind of pattern. So I think I would have probably gotten way. It would have been very, very different if I would have actually taken the time off from work and recovered, but I didn't. So I think that's also part of the reason why there's so much of it, like the tiredness. And I remember at the time the kids were small, and we had financial difficulties at work, and just because of the kids, I hadn't slept properly for 5 years. I hadn't slept 2 consecutive nights with 8 hours of sleep for 5 years. And then I thought that was so depressing, so I stopped counting. So I don't even know for how much longer it continued. But there was like having small children, anybody knows that it's tiring. And when you're pregnant, and then you're nauseous, and then you don't sleep well, and then you breastfeed, and then you wake up during the night, and then you have the kids who wake up during the night, and then you get pregnant again, and then the same thing, like all over, and working, and a 2-hour commute on top of that. And it just if now that I'm talking about this, it just sounds insane. What the fuck? Yeah, but I mean, I made a choice quite early on for myself that like I wanted all. I wanted the kids, I wanted my practice, and I wanted the
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
Not that I sought out a career, but like that I'd stay, and that I could manage all of them well, which then maybe also led to not paying that much attention to my health, because you can only juggle so many balls at a time. But yeah,
And this is
it's
some burnout you're talking about, was it?
the burnout,
Yeah.
yeah, and the kind of patterning behind it,
Hmm.
the kind of needing to be kind of not being able to let go of things, because that would have meant that I would have failed. And there's also this kind of sense of grit that you kind of bite
Yeah.
your teeth, and then you just continue, like, yeah. And yeah, it's a very common pattern in Finnish culture, with also called sisu, which is this that you, even through the most adverse situations, you don't give up and you just push through. But that can also be misused. Like, you have to know when you need to stop, and kind of
Hmm.
when to continue. And I didn't know when to stop, because I didn't feel like I could, which is also a distortion.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But
This tends to feel part of it, the cycle of the practice as well. It just continuously brings stuff up, and in a way, it's samsara magnified. And
mm,
we, even when we try and take a break, it's like this grip, this ceaseless clinging,
yeah,
just doesn't let us have a break.
yeah. Yeah, that's also it. And it's the um and when I say break, I would have probably needed to take sick leave, and to get a break from the external circumstances, two apart. Not that I can take a break from my children, but from work, for instance, for a prolonged period of time. But it's yeah, I can see the same pattern of committing to a lot of things, because I wanted to have a say, not because I want the power, but because I want to be in control, so that the tiny dissociated part of my psyche wouldn't be exposed. Like I said, if I can control the kind of narrative and the situation, it puts me in a place where I'm quote unquote not vulnerable, because I feel I've experienced that the influence that I have gives me protection from, like, this is the distorted vines that I was talking about, and which means then kind of committing to all kinds of things, and then you realize you don't have the capacity to do all of them, and then you start letting important people down, and then you create your own misery basically by trying to avoid your own misery on another side.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Again,
Mm,
avoiding seeing and feeling what you actually are seeing and feeling inside.
yeah.
Yeah.
And this is at its essence, is a sense of not enoughness.
Yeah. And then like a sense of being not being enough and not and also like this fear of failure, and also a sense of acceptance and approval coming from the outside and not from me internally but externally. So this it's like seeking validation from the outside has been, I mean, I would say even up to last year it's been really strong to rely on other people's opinion instead of my own opinion, to be kind of so disconnected from yourself that you rely on other people's judgment instead of your own judgment.
Mm.
And it's like that. Finding your own voice would maybe be a different way of saying it too, kind of like who you are and what you stand for and what you believe. And it doesn't mean in a confrontive way, but it's in a very sober way that you become yourself. And when you become yourself, your boundaries become also like very, very clear, because you know what you think about things and who you are. And it's not that you want to take up space from someone else, but it's, you might have certain boundaries and you want to do things in a certain and like certain way, because that's kind of how you feel, that like that's how it feels for you, not because it's a trauma reaction or that you're getting triggered, because you've resolved the triggers and the trauma patterns and the selfishness and whatever might have been as a driver before. But and it yeah, I notice my just in general how I'm with people is much more genuine.
Mm.
Yeah, and also grounded. Yeah.
So this is because you do feel home in yourself now.
Yeah,
There's not this sense of not enoughness.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
And your ability to co-regulate yourself.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, that's been a big one. Yeah, that was one of the first, or one of the things that I noticed that I've used my husband to co-regulate myself too. When I'm feeling very dysregulated, I've just sat next to him or talked to him, and kind of when he's calm, he kind of gets me calm as well,
mm.
and gets my nervous system to relax. And I noticed that has shifted to the exact opposite way around, because I'm regulated and calm. It has an effect on him now. So when he's so when if he has a restless night and a lot of energy is running around and can't sleep, he just basically places a hand on me, and then his entire system relaxes.
Ah, nice.
Yeah. So that's yeah. But when it used to be kind of a so that he was the kind of emotional support for me when I needed, when I couldn't kind of regulate myself. I mean, I don't mean I was kind of all over the place, but that I could feel that this kind of like restlessness, that yeah, that helped quite a bit. And and that's again putting kind of like trust and into someone else than me, that I can't do it myself, but I have the external help, and yeah, help for it. But I mean, it's yeah, I'm not saying you shouldn't take help. I'm just saying that for me, I used it as a kind of like a crutch,
Mhm.
not having the faith in me and my capabilities, but needing like an external source for it. Yeah. So believing that the same kind of like a different aspect of the approval seeking from the outside, to have like help come in from the outside, that I'm not capable of it like internally. Yeah.
So in a way, is that quite a restful experience, just being able to rest in yourself, as it were? And do you experience any anxiety, any background anxiety anymore?
Oh, it's very restful. It's calm. It's there's not nothing erratic or on anything that would be like in disharmony internally. And oh, what said about the pains, like different weird pains and like a rib popping out of getting dislocated, that got resolved as well. I needed to like even my kids knew how to. I was lying on the floor and they were kind of pressing in a certain angle and direction on my back, and they even knew how to do it, because sometimes I wasn't able to pop it back into place myself. So all those kind of like weird pains have gone, and there is this just like basic. It doesn't even. It doesn't even. If I say ordinary, it means there's something that's in unordinary, or do you say inordinary? What do you say in English? Yeah, that isn't ordinary.
Yeah.
But it isn't that, because it's just, yeah, it's just like this basic way of being that doesn't, there's nothing, it's not, it's a stable, natural being. Because good would imply there's bad, but it's beyond good and bad, and it's beyond ordinary, because it's just it's something that you can't add anything to and you can't subtract anything from either. Well, I have to put a bit of parenthesis there. There is the tiny echoes from the physical body, but the internal knowingness of who you are doesn't, you can't take away from it or add anything to it. Yeah. So it's just this really sober and wholesome and kind of spontaneous way of being. Yeah.
How does this relate to emotions? Because it's quite difficult for people to understand that you could still have the whole range of emotions but not suffer any of them.
Mm.
But it sounds like you're talking that the emotions are in some sense in harmony, um, and there's no internal friction with them.
Yeah, exactly. And and this that was actually a big one for me too, because I still get annoyed with the dogs if they wake me up in the middle of the night when I want to sleep. And then I was like, but this is the accurate response, because I would want to sleep and they wake me up. So being annoyed is okay. Like, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't be annoyed, but the thing is that it doesn't come with a whole story, like a backlog of like a tsunami with a like, and it doesn't sweep you away, but it kind of comes up and then it dissolves. So it doesn't leave this lingering trace of in your body, and you're not turning on something that like you're, yeah, it's this because you've addressed the, sure, I mean, yes, I've had frustration too that came with this huge wave of tsunami, and I was just like really reactive to my surroundings and snapping at whoever was there, and just like, but you've addressed the tsunami. That's why you can have the pure emotion of frustration or anger or like any emotion. So it, because the tsunami wave that hits you is that it's kind of buried in your mind, in the kind of like bottom layers of the mud, like deeper than the deepest stuff you're even aware of. It's just kind of like all suppressed there. So yeah, so those, like, working with those blind spots makes it possible, when you've resolved them, makes it possible to actually have pure anger. Or if you get scared, you don't need to, like, you've addressed the, I don't know, guilt or fear-related traumas that might get triggered at the same time. So the problem isn't the emotions that we have, it's the story we've created around them, the narrative that we feel we shouldn't be feeling this, or we should be feeling that, or just like these pent up energies that suddenly bubble up completely uncontrollably. That's the territory that we're working with practice. And once you've addressed them, it actually becomes really beautiful, because you don't have to second guess yourself, like, what am I feeling and why am I feeling this, and should I be feeling this, is it okay to feel this, like all like the normal constant kind of like narrative and questioning we have in our minds, that is this okay, isn't this okay, what do they think about me, kind of that whole thing just goes away. And then you can, because you've, it really does feel like you've arrived home in yourself. And that means that there's really no need to second guess, because you know who you are. And if you know who you are, you know what you feel. And if you know what you feel, you have the correct response in your, like, your emotions are the correct response to whatever circumstance arises. So, yeah, it's a beautiful thing to have emotions. And it would be awful if we'd somehow, I don't know how,
Yeah.
would somehow get rid of them, or they would just disappear. Just like thoughts don't disappear, it's the attachment to the thoughts that disappear. So it's the attachment and aversion and to our emotions that disappear. It's not the emotions themselves that disappear.
Yeah, I think the actual words attachment and non-attachment give a wrong idea, because if you think
Yeah,
of we're attached to something, that means we detach from something, but
exactly.
it's absolutely not detachment. It's just that we've stopped this endless
Yeah,
clinging,
there's
this
no even
stickiness.
grasping in it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah. And I really liked how Baba put it. Emptiness would actually be better translated as zero-ness.
Mm,
So it's not minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like negative, or plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positive emotions, but arriving at this equanimity at zero-ness, which is maybe easier to understand. This neutrality, it doesn't mean the emotions go away, but the positive or negative attributes that we put on the emotions and thoughts
mm.
go away with practice.
The aversion and the clinging.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And how has this appeared in your relationships? I'm thinking as I'm asking you these questions, it's what are you, 2.5 months? So it's only been a few weeks, really.
Yeah.
You're still getting used to this experience, but have you noticed how has it had much effect in your relationships that you've noticed?
Um, well, I'm married to a practitioner as well. So we've had already since the beginning quite frank and straightforward discussions
Mm.
about everything. It's kind of like, if you don't show up in your relationship, you don't show up in your practice. You can't, if you're hiding on in one place in your life, you can't really show up in another with a clear consciousness or conscience. And I think for me at least, I have a much easier time to kind of speak my truth and kind of, even to a bigger degree than before, just be myself, and also kind of state my own needs. And in general, I think we're in a oh yeah, I realized that I've had like quite severe codependency, kind of like externalizing parts of my responsibility to someone else, and now realizing kind of how I've maybe projected things, or not projected, but put a responsibility on my husband, which, like, for instance, the co-regulation, or kind of like serving as this anchor point if I'm feeling down, or so had him as an external anchor point instead of finding that in me or the gurus. And
Mm.
but in general, I think it's it's only a positive thing in the relationship, because I mean, looking at it the other way, I mean, I could understand if I would have put up a complete show and suddenly I'm me, and who I kind of posed to be would have been someone completely different. It could actually be quite a shock for who you're married to. If, like, kind of when all the shields come off,
Yeah.
then is that person actually the one you thought you married? So, yeah. And but also like this, that it's a choice to be married. It's
Mhm.
not that you need the other person, it's because you want the other person.
Mm.
Do you understand the difference? It's not, you're not feeling some kind of obligation towards anybody, and you're not looking for, like I said, for external kind of co-regulation, but it's just because you purely want to be with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It and I mean, and it's a beautiful thing. It's not that you actually need something from them, but it's because you want to be with them. So
So
it's a different
you
setup. Yep.
you still have choices at enlightenment. In that sense, there's still once you might not describe them as samsaric desires, but would you describe it as a more pure desire, or how do you frame uh, the wants that you have in life? Because you're a layperson, you
Mm-hmm.
live an ordinary, regularly modern life.
Yeah.
So there are still choices to be had.
Oh, definitely. And those choices don't go anywhere. But I think the ground you make the choices from um, is much more sober, and comes from a place of your own true needs instead of obligations, or some distorted sense of yeah, societal norms or something else. So, for instance, when I was talking about the tiredness, so I don't feel guilty if I need to rest. I can rest without feeling guilty, and I can take the time off that I need. And if I need time for myself, it's okay for me to say to my husband that I mean, I need more space for me now. That if I have some physical or stuff coming up from the physical body, that kind of like I need to understand what's going on, because it still does have it has this kind of like squeeze effect. It doesn't change the insight of the astral body or the causal body, but it still feels uncomfortable, and it does have like this, it feels,
Mhm.
yeah. So in that sense, it doesn't remove the attainment, but it kind of has adds an extra uncomfort level on top of it. And then I might need a bit more space just to kind of navigate around what's going on. And it's okay to say. And I don't need, like, I don't feel guilty about it. And he understands it too. And it's just so much easier when when there's, yeah, no need for, yeah, anything kind of except what you're feeling. Like, there's doubt about what you're feeling.
Mm.
So it's easy to, yeah, convey that. And yeah, just like your own needs. Um, yeah, I mean, for it, well, we've been eating, so we're meat eaters, and um, I have a very similar lunch at work, which is chicken and some like this like seasoning and vegetables, which is like I eat the same stuff pretty much every day. And so then when I get home, I don't want to eat the same dinner every day because I already basically eat the same lunch every day. And so, I mean, the other day I wanted to eat salmon instead with the quinoa and the salad that we had, and or the vegetables. So I mean, sure. I mean, I have preferences. I like cherry ice cream and I like chocolate ice cream. I don't like strawberry that much. I like strawberries. I mean, that's just normal. That's kind of like my personality then again. But I mean, I did have a lot of, now that we came in on the topic of food, I used it. That was also one of the things that I noticed when my cessation started, that the food noise, like this buzzing, like this constant kind of background echo about food, had dropped away. And I've been aware of it for already quite a while. And I know that it came from my earliest childhood when I woke up from naps and I was feeling very, very unhappy about still being here. I would have much rather been wherever I went when I was sleeping, and then I was back in this body, and I was very, very upset about that. And my parents thought that I was hungry, so so they always had basically a bottle ready. Even as soon as they even like heard me make small movements, they knew that okay, make the milk bottle ready, and then they were feeding me, like, so that I wouldn't even like yeah, so that I learned to associate alleviating uncomfortable feelings through eating.
Mm.
And that um, erratic energy internally that I've eaten to make, to have so many other impulses going on inside me that it, how do you say, subdues or pushes down the
Yeah.
uncomfortable kind of yeah, traces that were there from the beginning. So
Mm.
I learned to suppress that, whatever is uncomfortable, to turn to food. So it's been quite a long process to kind of unwind that, and I realized that like those final bits of that noise and patterning and conditioning dropped off together with the kind of astral body cessation.
Mm. Well, this is a really big thing, I think, for regular people, that this ability to be able to rest without guilt,
Yeah,
especially when we're going through difficult, busy periods in our life, and we get caught up in these things, and um, we try and rest, and there's no ability to be able to rest. We go on holiday, we're worrying about when the holiday is going to end, and we get a cold because the adrenaline's dropped, and this type of thing. And then with these little addictions that we all have, um, and these ways of when we go to rest, we don't rest properly because we rest in a way where we're distracting ourselves. Think with like social media or YouTube, or we're doing this or that, and we can't just rest and do nothing. We can't just rest in our own experience of ourselves, and we use food, other compulsions to hide and mask this feeling that we don't want to face. And we don't properly rest because we're pushing this down, stopping it from
yeah,
coming up.
yeah. That's that's samsara avoiding. Yeah, and I mean, if we'd stop, we'd actually start to feel, and we don't want to feel what we're feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
it's
it
numbing
feels
out.
like shit. It's lousy. It just feels awful. So,
Yeah,
what? I mean, yeah. Why not pop a few candies or chips or whatever food or a beer or glass of wine or
yeah, yeah.
something? Yeah.
So, did you notice this in other ways, in like not needing that coffee or not needing the to watch Netflix and
Yeah, it's like the big thing. I mean, I used to play kind of these Supercell games on my phone. I haven't touched them for years now. Like the need to distract myself in that way dropped. Sure, I've had my share of Netflix binges and um, but you like the thing is it's a difference if you're just doing it for avoidance or if you're aware that it's avoidance and you're still aware of it and then using that as practice material. So
mm,
you can so that's like the path of the tantric, and the layperson is like you're using your whole life, like everything in your life. That's the practice ground. It's not when you're on, of course it's when you're sitting and you're on your cushion, but it's also your whole life, like all your choices, why you make them, like that kind of doing vipassana on everything in your life, kind of being like not just acting like a robot going through your life, but actually being aware of why you're doing the things you're doing. And
mm,
yeah, so yeah, that goes with everything. I mean, nothing is out of reach or like off limits for us as tantric practitioners, which is like that's kind of like the richness of life.
yeah.
Yeah, not renounce yet, but the whole everything that life has to offer.
Mm.
Yeah.
I was very much renunciate before I came to this particular path because very much minimalist, getting rid
Mm.
of as much as I could in my life. But I didn't realize for myself that a lot of that was aversion.
Ah.
And you're in this minimalism, trying to
Yeah.
keep things simple, and this grasping at simpleness because you don't want all this confusion and chaos.
Yeah.
You don't realize that actually that confusion and chaos is in you, and now you're trying to
Yeah.
you're trying to carpet the whole of life, but you're not
Yeah. You're
working with
controlling
your own mind.
yeah, the external circumstances in hopes that it would help in the internal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you able to describe in some way how this is there an experience of it appears as an insight? Um, so how do you perceive reality now? Is it any different to before the shift?
Mm, I think I see it. So before you have the five kleshas, or four in my case, because I'd already solved the first one of avidya. They're
Nice.
all distorting your view of reality and just everything. Like even at how you look, if you look out through the window and how the trees look to you, there's some kind of you don't see it, but there is this filter in between that creates a sense of separation that draws away from the essence of ourself and from what you're seeing. And like with the shift, this one, the astral body shift, um, I think the intimacy that I said about earlier, that's the most like one of the pronounced things that stands out to me. Like this direct experiencing without filters, this absolute, it definitely not in a sexual way, but just like this pureness and directness of experience. In sound, in touch, in seeing, in tasting, in smelling, like all senses has just this wonderful directness, like this, yeah. It's almost like you'd draw a line that connects me to you and me to
Yeah.
everything else, your tankas and your lamp and your bed and like everything I have here in my room, my shrine and my drum and the Guru Rinpoche tanka. It's all like without this sense of separation. And there was I think it was Dolpopa actually who said that, was talking about like the sense of no, like otherness drops
Mhm.
away
Mm.
when with the causal body purification, the sense of self drops away. So with the astral body, it seems to be that the sense of otherness drops away, and with the my theory, how I've been able to phrase it into words that with the physical body and when that drops into cessation, it seems like the doer becomes the doing. So like there's that the doer kind of drops away. So and then kind of everything coincides. Yeah.
I relate it to a little bit of a cessation that I had of the meridians. The contrast for me was it was almost like I was experiencing things before they happened. So it was as if my awareness moved into the intent.
Mm.
So earlier you described uh, that beforehand you weren't able to catch emotions, but now the emotions arise and you catch them as they arise. So
Yeah.
is there that sort of sense as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's yes, that's a really yeah that analogy works really well because we're um we're so used to living in the past or planning things for the future that we're not really in the present moment. And when we're in the present moment, we can actually connect and we can be we're there. We're not in our thoughts somewhere else or caught up in some thought loops or reliving some old things or planning because it's actually quite seldom that well this is I'm talking about non-practitioners now, but that we're not really here. Even if I'd be sitting here, I'd be somewhere else or thinking about, oh, I need to check my phone, or I should be thinking about my grocery list, or what about, I don't know, something, inheritance taxes, or I need to call this person or that person. So we would not really actually be kind of connecting in this moment and in this place and this time. So that's all like that's one of the big also differences, I'd say, that you're yeah, I think it was one of our fellow Sangha members, Trevor, who said already a while back before the astral body cessation that yeah, but yeah, Sangita, she's never not there. This was when I had the causal body in cessation, and it
Yeah, yeah.
feels even more like that you're never
Okay.
not here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering how you experience time as well, and the point you made there, when you purify the causal emptiness, there is a sense of timelessness to a certain extent, but
Mm.
I feel like there's still quite a lot of noise in the energy body, still thoughts and emotions that cloud, that separate. Um, so there's always this sort of background noise that I might describe as angst, uh, this subtle contraction of the whole energy field that distorts this being able to be present. Um, So now do you experience this noise as having dropped away, and how do you experience time?
Yeah, that's actually really interesting because I noticed at some point that my perception of time had changed. Um, I don't feel time passing in the same way I used to, which I had like a nightmare week at work because I was missing meetings and Teams calls and such, because the way that I'd kind of been perceiving time wasn't there anymore. So I didn't have a sense of how much time had passed. So I was like, for that week, I was running late for pretty much everything. And I was like, I mean, this is like, how am I going to function? Because I mean, I have yeah, I mean, I have meetings and I need to pick up the kids for their hobbies and such, and just like normal, like you can't just stop obeying to time, even if it behaves somehow differently for you. And that's when I realized that I don't feel like I am in time, because time is kind of three-dimensional and it collapses into this zero dimensionless kind of I don't even want to say space, but it just collapses, and then all that's left is the present moment. And then you don't have a sense of, have we been talking for 15 minutes or have we been talking for an hour, or we've been talking for soon 2 hours. It like I don't feel the passing of time, but I can see that the time has passed, but I don't have that feel of the flow. And it's actually interesting because the same happens with sense of space.
Mm.
Like with when I'm driving to work, I noticed this already a bit, like both of these before the permanent cessation started. That I see I'm driving and I'm moving, but I don't feel the movement because there's no separation between my surroundings and me. Like that kind of the otherness isn't there anymore. So yeah, it I've gotten used to it, but yeah, but you know when you drive a car and you feel the speed, and especially if you're accelerating or overtaking someone, I don't have that anymore. So that's also because kind of space collapses into zeroness. So yeah, because that otherness, like the separation, isn't there anymore. Yeah.
But you can still function.
Oh yeah.
Um, and would you say that does the body block any of that, this sense of timelessness? Um,
I think that's the final missing piece actually. Um, that comes, or when that comes, then that's like full absolute full Buddhahood. This is I'm not there yet, and that's also when actions. I still have this sense of individuality of the physical body, so that I am doing things. I so okay, if I reverse a bit. So thoughts arise without attachment. I'm not trying to filter them. Emotions arise spontaneously without me filtering them. However, action, I am still the one performing and doing, like doing things and how do you say, taking action. So in that there's still the duality of it that having a yeah, like this physical body that I am doing things with. I am not yet beyond seeing that, but that's the kind of like last layer of kind of actually let, like having everything arise spontaneously without this identification in the kind of a physical body that's still, I don't know if it's identification exactly, but the kind of, yeah, the doer drops away and everything becomes doing. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So it's almost quite strange that when emptiness realization happens, there is no self. Yet there somehow is this self with the astral body, this
Yeah.
body that still believes in itself and still reacts to things, and the emotions in that sense um, still react and contract as
Mm.
a self. But then we've purified through the astral body, and would you say it's the identification of the body has lifted? So perhaps as a way to describe it, there's just this some sense of this doership still left over.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely. And everything, like the sense of the last traces of separation seem to be in this doership, um, and the mm, the sense of that, I mean, I have a hand uh, that's, say, waving right now, and I am doing it with my hand through my body instead of it all like kind of like being this expression where everything, just all three bodies, don't yet flow in a kind of a, they're all interconnected, and they should be flowing seamlessly kind of from one to the other, but two do, but the third one is still kind of, the physical body is still not as kind of a light and ethereal as and pure as the two other ones are. Yeah.
So the kind of the last line of questioning that I want to ask you is about your practice and what you before this cessation. So I will ask you about your practice now in a little while, but your practice and have you noticed anything in retrospect that you noticed about the advancement towards this final cessation? So you did talk about, in some sense, the dark nights feel more intense. Um, but was there any other sense around it that showed you that you were reaching this end point?
Um, a lot of the practice that I did was it's like a vipassana practice, that you're aware of a contraction that arises, and then you kind of mirror that against kind of what you kind of a natural state. So kind of like you find those contractions that you know aren't, or that are somehow distorting your view. And I was constantly kind of scanning my body for those tensions and thought patterns that I could kind of pick up on, and then went after those and then released those quite often through crying. And I could see that when they were kind of like if you shoot with a shotgun, you get like a lot of small kind of scraps in all kinds of directions, so the aim area is really big. But then it's starting to narrow down and kind of get more kind of concise. So it seemed like there's
Okay,
this
yeah, yeah.
kind of funnel, the wide opening where you can just like you you hit material whichever way you turn, basically.
Yeah.
There's so much of it that you can't really miss. And but then somehow there seems to be these things that start to crystallize, and then you kind of go further in the funnel, and it narrows down into like certain topics and themes, and not that it's just random stuff floating around, but that there's actually a method in the madness, so to say, and you're kind of discovering kind of themes and layers and patterns. That was kind of, in some sense, an indication of not necessarily how much is left, but that you're actually somehow getting closer to the root of whatever aspect you're working on. It doesn't yet tell you that how close the end is, and that's maybe one of the frustrating things with the astral body purification, that it's not as clean cut and easy to estimate as
Darn it.
or what, yeah, or let's say, so you can maybe do the how much you have, like it's easy to see kind of in the like read the energy and estimate how far you have gotten, but it's impossible to estimate how long the rest will take. That's the because it depends on how well you can uncover all those or like blind spots, that all this, and how willing you are to face whatever rises, instead of like your readiness to face what comes up.
Mm.
There was something I was thinking about just a moment ago. It'll come back. Yeah. And and then the intensity kind of gets dialed up the further and deeper, and kind of more to the narrow part of the funnel you get.
Mm.
So yeah.
I'm definitely relating to a lot of this. The intensity increases, yet something is opening out more, and there's this sort of shifting going on inside the body, where it feels like almost layers of the astral body are peeling away. Uh, Sometimes, like when you were talking about sort of the sense of spatialness, that sometimes it can be a little disorientating, because stuff will open out, and it's like some part of your body is open out but the other part hasn't. So some part is experiencing this spacelessness, and then another part is experiencing this contraction.
Yeah.
And um, but there has been, it's been quite gradual sort of opening out for me. But the ride is quite a roller coaster. You go through a really intense part and you realize you're dealing with something very tight and very specific, like something being yanked out of the heart. In my case, I felt it like physically being pulled out. And there's this sense that perhaps I've dealt with something that was one of the more intense things that I'm going to deal with. But then it comes and you go through a less dark night, but then the contraction comes again, and there's something very specifically other that you're dealing with, and very pressured. It creates a lot of pressure and twisting, and almost like a crushing, that
Yeah.
like your emotions are crushed, and it's like, I want to get out.
Yeah, you could actually perceive, and your eyes even like look different just now when you did the
Yeah,
kind of contraction.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, but just like the energy shifting, yeah, it's uncomfortable, but it's manageable. And yeah, we just have to have the willingness to face it, like the readiness to face it, and to meet with it, and also be compassionate with ourselves, to allow ourselves also to be sad and to be
Mm.
angry, and yeah, to really feel all those things that we haven't allowed ourselves to feel. Yeah. Not just compassion for other beings, but for ourselves too.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
That the suffering we're going through is the suffering as other people are going through.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that kind of like the motivation for practice, for me at least in the beginning, it was completely self-based, to kind of offer me personally a solution to my own existential
Yeah.
discomfort, and a way to kind of hide from facing the truth in a way.
Hmm. Hmm.
And but then I had a big revelation on a retreat. I'd been talking to Baba a bit earlier, like why my practice wasn't maybe moving along as fast, and it was quite clearly because of lack of bodhicitta, what he said. And I remember there was one of the world Buddhas, Buddha Kashyapa, the world Buddha before Buddha Shakyamuni, a relic from him that Baba had with him on the retreat. And I had opened 6 bhumis at the time, and then we had the retreat, and we could ask for blessings or make a request to this to the relic of Buddha Kashyapa. And I remember sitting there, and I couldn't figure out anything good to ask. Like I was one of the first ones in line, and there was like a long line after me of retreat participants waiting for their turn, and then Baba was already like kind of like indicating that your time's up, move on. And I was like, but I haven't made a request, and I want to make a request. And then I was like, okay, I went through my mind, okay, I have a family, I have a job, fairly okay health, my parents are alive, everything's okay with them and with my family and relatives. Okay, I don't need personally anything. So this is kind of the selfishness part also. But then I was like, okay, so I'll ask for the Sangha to grow and for these teachings to spread out to reach as many beings as possible. Then I was like, made it. And then I put it back and thanked and bowed and continued to sit on my place. And that, realizing that I don't need anything, that I have more than enough, that I can actually wish for things for other beings, for them to find like authentic Dharma. That just skyrocketed my practice. And I just made the math. I was looking at my in my notes about the Bhumi progression, and I opened within 2.5 months my 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, and perfected my first Bhumi. So 8 shifts in 2.5 months, of which 5 openings within a month. And I could feel like it was as if I was riding a wave. Like I was like the charge that I received from the Bodhicitta was carrying me. Like the compassion that even if I was a bit, it wasn't coming from like a perfectly pure place, because my first reaction was, what can I ask for me, when we were asking for the blessings. But then I realized I don't have anything to ask for me. So then it kind of like, it wasn't like coming from this really deep yearning to liberate all beings, but it still had enough sincerity that I asked it for. Like I gave away my wish for other beings' benefit. And that wave of compassion that came from the gurus, it actually felt like a wave that I was riding on. And I could see that it would carry me like 2, 3, 4 Bhumi openings, and then I could see that it started to kind of fade a bit, and then I was like, okay, it'll carry me even through the first perfection, and then it subsided. So the compassion aspect can't be, it's like it's the magic pill, so to say, that it just opens up your subtle bodies and cuts through dark nights, and it just, if your practice isn't going like you think it should be, and you're not progressing, it's most probably a lack of bodhicitta. Not a technique problem if you're doing AM practices, but lack of bodhicitta. Yeah.
And just making the simple wish opened something for you, even if it didn't feel like it totally came from a genuine place. It opened you into that place.
Yeah. And now I get like the things that make, like, absolutely give me the most meaning and feel like the most purposeful things are when I'm on retreats talking and sharing, and if I'm hosting Wednesday sessions with the Finnish Sangha, guiding sessions, and just being able to contribute. And of course, I need a job. I need to pay bills. I need to feed the kids, pay for their hobbies, pay for my whatever, my car, fuel for the car. So I need a job. But that doesn't mean, I like deep down, I never forget that there are beings that suffer, and I have been immensely blessed to find these teachings and come to this place and in my own practice. So to pay that forward, because if Baba wouldn't have been on the yoga fair, I wouldn't have found out about the practices. Same with other people who he's been active on forums, and who have then, those posts have then kind of led people to find these practices. So kind of being out there and showing that it's possible with my own face, with my own lived examples. And I mean, it kind of feels like if I can do this, anyone can do it. I don't feel like I'm a straight A student. I'm just like a normal, faulty person who misses deadlines and misses meetings and eats too much sometimes and sleeps too little, and like, yeah, I'm just a normal person. Yeah.
So is this bodhicitta something that is just naturally there now?
Yes. And I remember the experience of because we have these prayers that we the opening prayers that we do before, when we start our practice sessions, when we ask for blessings of the gurus, and then when we close up our practice session, for when we're wishing for liberation for all beings and dedicating our merit, and Bodhisattva vows, refuge prayers. It actually means that you've graduated them, like the energy that they give, like the transmission they have is what you become. So they're never separate from you.
Yeah, I see.
And that's who you are. Yeah, that wish and that bodhicitta. And it can have wrathful like expressions, for sure. So it doesn't just mean like this. Oh yeah, my face. I have on my Facebook feed elephants and tiny skipping goats. They're just wonderful. But I mean, it's not just that.
Yeah.
It's the whole range of emotions. Yeah.
So what is practice like now?
Yeah, it's I really like, well, guru yoga. It's been the cornerstone in my practice. It's since, yeah, since the beginning.
Yeah.
And different masters, like more Buddhist masters, when I was doing the causal body practice and purifying that, and then Hindu gurus and for the astral body. And now I've been practicing quite a lot with Bodhidharma, and not only through just like silently praying to him, but actually inviting his blessings and using like chanting out loud, and having this percussion instrument. I don't know what you call them, but the things that we do, like use when we're chanting and leading a session. And I can feel, when I'm doing that practice, I can feel this sense of the doer and the doing kind of closing in on it just being doing. kind of
Mm.
that's left. So that's and then Pilates. I've been going to classes on Fridays, and just this well, Bodhicitta works wonders as well. Um, yeah, in some sense, I'm still learning. I don't have this figured out completely yet, and but I've been taken back and by and being surprised about how intense the energy releases are,
Mm.
and how little, or like how there is no insight in them. It's just energy releasing.
Mm.
So it's like screaming without being angry. So like so you're screaming and then it stops, or
Okay.
then you stop it. Yeah, but there's no kind of a backlash from like any, yeah, there's no other than pressure in it, or
Mm.
nothing else but pressure, or sadness, or like it can be a bit like the migraine, for instance, that I had. There was pain in those kind of pathways where my migraine has been. So it's just been, and that's, there was no insight in that, like I said. So just stuck energy that takes different shapes. So I made the joke the other week that, so first you live your life, you go about and experience all kinds of things, then you start to address it in your causal body practice, like the self-identification with it, and then you purify that, and then you address the same stuff through the the in the astral body, and then the fourth time is when you're doing like releasing the traces in the physical body. So you're actually living your life four times.
Yeah.
Different aspects of the same thing. Yeah.
Here we go again.
Here we go again. Oh yeah, I have to say I've felt it a couple of times, like, oh my god, does this never end? That
Mm.
I just want this to end. And then you're like, okay, but I just have like I cannot practice, or I can't stop practicing because I know I'd just be completely screwed. That there's like not practicing is even worse than practicing, even if
Mm.
practice is painful. Yeah.
So you're talking about your experience now of practicing.
No, in general, like it's been all throughout the path that I
Yeah.
knew that at some, like it was quite clear that I can't stop, that I'm in this for life,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, either I finish or then I die trying. Not of old age, not that I'd kill myself, but
Uh-huh.
of, yeah, that's, yeah, there's
Yeah,
no really.
I've had that experience too, where it's I'd quite happily just go off into the wilderness for a year and stop practice and just do mindfulness meditation.
Mm,
Uh, but you know you've got to come back to it anyway.
yeah,
And it's like even if you went away, there's still all this processing that still happens that is like this wave of momentum that you
yeah,
can't stop.
yep,
It keeps going anyway.
yep,
Uh, and then you're going to have to get back up of your resting and carry on as you were, and that's
yep.
probably more painful.
Yeah, and
So
you can't really, you can't, like, there comes a point when you just can't turn a blind eye anymore to it. I mean, you're running away from your own mind and your own psyche. So even if you'd go off to Thailand for 3 months to be a beach bum, you'd still carry all your problems with you.
yeah, yeah.
It's just a nicer setting where to address them. Yeah, yeah.
How is actual meditation now?
Um, it's like non-meditation. There is no meditation. It's non-meditation of thoughts and emotions.
Mm.
Just observing what arises, or it's not even observing what arises, it just arises. There's no there's no other condition than non-meditation and being present
There's
in
no
the moment.
observer observed.
Yeah.
the observer observed has collapsed, and it's just
Yeah. It's just non-meditation, like thoughts arising, feelings arising, and no clinging and no filtering of them.
hmm. Is it nice to meditate? Like enjoyable to meditate? And do you experience connecting with the gurus in a different way?
Yes, it's beautiful. Like um, they have. I mean, I feel like a newborn. I don't know, maybe like a tiny newborn baby in a way, kind of like uncooked and raw and inexperienced. So connecting with the gurus and their richness and is there's this new um, I don't know how to say this without it being misunderstood, but it's like they have this even like even deeper depth to them than what I could have understood before.
Mhm.
Like this richness and just how they show up for everybody who asks for their blessings in completely open and ready to help and as the like the individual expressions of the natural state and how they're slightly different but like different flavors and just like people are different, like how the gurus are different, and it's yeah, I still have a lot to learn from them. Yeah, and it's surprising in a way. Um, Also because I didn't really know what the end, like what this stage would be like, to still kind of learn about how I feel and what comes up and what definitely does not come up. So yeah, it's a learning process, and I hope that the day comes rather sooner than later than we have everything mapped out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you thought much of death and what's going to happen to you after death?
Um, I had an experience just when my 10th bhumi perfected, when the emptiness path finished. Um, I was lying in bed, and then my awareness rose up along the bhumi pillar, along the central channel, and up, 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 beyond my own individual pillar, and just lifted up even further up.
Mm.
And then I was shown like a book that had a lot of pre-written like pages that were written, and then like the opening page, or the page that was open, was my current life that was being kind of written as I was kind of experiencing things. Everything was documented there. But there was this very, very clear image of a red thread kind of going in the book through all the letters, like this same lifeline and life force that's flowing through me right now in this form.
Mhm.
At that, it had like several forms before, the same awareness, and it had several different lives and stories and things had happened. So it became quite clear to me that this is just like temporary clothing. Like
Yeah.
that it's like me wearing this jumper today and tomorrow I'll wear something else. And so in this life I'm wearing this body, but I am like I've had lives before, and I'll very, very likely take rebirth again. So it's like this. Yeah, I don't, in that sense, I don't fear death. I'm sure there's sadness once my parents will die, but I don't fear it as such. I see it more like changing programs on the TV and flicking on the remote control from one channel to another. So you're looking at one program and then you flick to the next one and then you're looking at another program. So that's kind of how you go from one life to another. Like you're, yeah. So yeah. I think I shed that, most of it, if not all. Yeah, maybe not everything, but most of it, like the fear of death, through like different mystical experiences that I've had along the path. Yeah.
I don't think I've asked you it in this way yet, but what do you think the main thing that you've learnt going from um, the end of purifying meridians to purifying them? Is there like a main lesson or a main insight that you learn at the cessation of meridians?
I think we all say that all the time, and which is completely actually true, that we all have Buddha nature in us. But it's just so important to get a first-hand feel for it, what that actually means, regardless of which body you're working with. Kind of that, what that enlightened body feels like when you've finished that body practice or subtle body practice. To kind of get a firm understanding and that like that, to get the direct introduction to your own nature, like to, yeah, that's been that I think that's the best insight I've had, to really know what you're going for in practice. So you're not just randomly aiming for something, but you actually have a first-hand experience that it's not something outside of you, but that you have it and how it feels and what kind of characteristics it has. And that like all the solutions that you're looking for on the outside are actually the internal discomfort that you're refusing to see, so you're projecting or searching for solutions on the outside. So it's that I wish I would have understood this earlier. Yeah, that would have made because I was so lost in my life. I mean, sure, like on the surface, perfectly functioning, and went to high school, university, master's exam, or a master's degree, and work, and traveling, and but internally I was completely lost. I had no idea, like I had no idea about anything, about like the what Dharma actually is, and that was what I was kind of looking for. And yeah, I'm glad I stumbled on Baba, because my life would have been completely miserable without practice. Yeah.
So is life shaping in any way for you now? Is there any sense that it's shaping into a different direction, or what is arising for you now? What's for Sangita in the future?
Yeah, I think there's a process of shaping your life to correspond with how you feel internally.
Mm.
And of course, you have a lot of circumstances that and responsibilities you can't just shed away or shed. And but I think there is a process of kind of calibrating your external circumstances to match your internal ones, so that there's not you don't feel stress as such, but it feels like this extra external kind of buzzing that isn't necessary. So, and that can be avoided. So I think there's like a reorganizing or restructuring in some way that's going to take place, not in a hurried way or uncontrolled way, but somehow like getting like all the pieces to match, not just so that external matches internal and internal external. Yeah.
I was thinking, even at this point, one of the reasons you've got to this point is because of your karma beforehand.
Mm.
The karma, in a way, leads you to awakening and Buddhahood.
Yeah.
And so the karma that you arrive to now was, in a way, unavoidable. So that there's circumstances and your life situations that you've created through your selfing and selfishness
Mm.
and manifested now. But now there's a reorganizing kind of principle going on, and
Yeah.
maybe that happens through the physical process as well.
And
What
I
do you think?
think, and so I mean, of course, you kind of start off your life as most of us do as samsaric beings, and you make choices based on trauma behavior, selfishness, complying to expectations and such. So I think it's time, in the same way that we're trying now to get the physical tissues to kind of adapt and soften up and also embody the natural state. So I think it's a natural continuum to also have that same energy flow into our kind of daily life and daily circumstances.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that'll do there. Thanks for describing your journey and how the cessation of meridians has unfolded for you. It's been uh, brilliant to hear your words and how it manifests in a regular human life.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a long but very interesting
Yeah,
talk,
yeah,
and thank you for the good questions.
my pleasure. There we go.